بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Takaful online course. And today we shall carry on the discussions on Mudarabah contract. So we have started in the previous sessions on Mudarabah contract as one of the very important contract in the structures of Takaful, and we have mentioned it is a kind of an investment structures that regard as an arrangements between the participant and the Takaful operators to deploy the funds in different investment classes, and basically according to that the profit will be shared between the two parties. So today we shall elaborate further on the Mudarabah, and it is very important to observe those conditions and aspects and rules in Mudarabah, because those rules and Sharia requirements will be govern the Mudarabah contract in one hand, and their observations and proper implementation will ensure the Sharia compliant status of the Mudarabah. In other words, if you don't observe the Sharia rules of Mudarabah, being in Islamic banking or Takaful, so basically you compromise on the Sharia compliant status of the Mudarabah, and as is of the data, possible impact or financial impact could be on the return, validity of the contract, and so on and so forth. This is why a Mudarabah should be run according to Sharia requirements, and terms and conditions should be observed. An appropriate way to ensure all the way that the Mudarabah contract is in a Sharia compliant status, and as a result of that, the return generated is legitimate without any issue. So let's start highlighting some of the points related to some characteristics of Mudarabah. The first one, basically, the divisions of profit must be proportionate based on the proportionate basis and cannot be lump sum amount. In other words, when you do a Mudarabah, a contract between the Takaful operator and the participant, of course, as we mentioned, the participant will provide the capital, which is in this case in the capital structures of the Takaful will be the risk fund, the investments funds, and possibly the shareholders funds. Basically, it will be altogether invested by the Takaful operator. But the portions of the basically the portions of Takaful or participant will be mainly two funds, which is the risk fund and the investment fund. So when the Takaful operators and the participants share the profit, this profit will be shared according to profit ratio, meaning that it will be in a form of percentage, like for example 50-50%, 30-70%. So it is not allowed from a Sharia standpoint in the Mudarabah structures and in the Mudarabah contract to have an absolute amount or a lump sum amount and determine as a profit to either one. That one is not allowed. For example, you cannot have this kind of an investment of, let's say, 100 million, let's say the Takaful fund, 100 million, and basically you will determine like for the Mudarib, let's say 100,000 per year, for example. This one is not allowed. So lump sum amount, an absolute amount in Mudarabah is not allowed. And as a result of that, the profit will be determined according to a specific percentage. Why? Because the relationship between Takaful operators and the participant, or the relationship between the two contracting party in the Mudarabah structure, they are regarded from a Sharia standpoint as a partner. So if you are a partner, you don't take a fee, you don't take a salary, you don't take a wage, you will take a profit from the return. Similar, for example, if you are invested in the stock and you have shares, you will be regarded as shareholder. So basically, you don't take a lump sum amount or specific amount, but you will take dividends. Dividends is basically kind of profit sharing ratio among the participant in a form of basically percentage. So here, just to re-emphasize, in Mudarabah contract, or even in Musharaka contract, all the equity structures. Having or determinations of an absolute amount or lump sum amount as a profit is not allowed by Sharia, but what is important is to determine that kind of profit sharing ratio between the two contracting parties in a form of a percentage, 50%, 50%, 70%, 30%. It depends on the arrangements, it depends on the agreement between the two contracting parties. It could be even 10-90, so this is left to them to determine the profit distributions. But what is important from Sharia, it should be determined based on percentage. That's the point number one. Point number two, the Mudarib cannot guarantee the capital of the return. Cannot guarantee either the capital nor the what's called the profit. So it is a joint ventures, it is a partnership on investment, and the Mudarib will do his best in the deployments of the funds in a proper investment classes, and basically he should not be under misconducts, breach of any terms and conditions, or negligence. As a result of that, he is not liable in case of losses of the capital. So from Sharia standpoint, he is not allowed to secure or to guarantee the capital and the profit. But the capital provider, when he selects the Takaful operator, or we select any investor or fund management, he has to make sure that he's basically selling someone who is capable, who's a professional, who's able to run the investments based on the mandate. He has experience in managing the business. As long as he has that kind of qualifications and expertise and knowledge in the field, and the capital provider entrusted this fund manager to run the business, so basically he will not be liable to guarantee the capital or the profit, but he will do his best, of course, and he has the obligations to protect the capital, to save the capitals, to generate the profit, and to act within the mandate of the scope according to the norm of the market. Any kind of violations to the practices, any kind of violation to the terms and conditions, any violation to the scope that has been agreed upon, especially if it is Mudarabah Muqayyada, meaning restricted investment structures, any deviations from that kind of mandate of scope, which will trigger basically negligence, misconduct, or breach of any term and condition. As a result of that, basically, you will be liable to guarantee the capital of the profit. But if none of this happen, so basically from a Sharia standpoint, it is a mutual agreements and understanding to invest the capital without any obligations to spell out in the agreement or otherwise that this capital or profit is guaranteed by the Mudarib. Otherwise, basically the contract will be under big questions from Sharia compliance standpoint. But of course, Sharia allowed a guarantee of a third party. Third party can come in, meaning not the Mudarib, but the third party. It could be a third party, it could be one of the government's agency, it could be one of the organizations, it could be one of the financial institutions, third party that basically have the interest to make sure that the investment will go on and secure the interests of the different party. Then he will take the responsibility to basically guarantee the capital. That one is allowed with some Sharia conditions, but in overall, third-party guarantee is allowed by the IOF standards, by the International Fiqh Academy, by the Sharia scholars without an issue. But Mudarib is not allowed to provide that guarantee. Otherwise, the investment will turn into a loan basically provided by the capital provider to the Mudarib, and the return is guaranteed and the capital is guaranteed. So basically, by substance, it will become regarded as an interest-bearing structure. So that's the point number two. Point number three, basically, the Mudarib does not share profit, share in the loss expert. I think we have mentioned this one already. Meaning the Mudarib does not share any kind of losses except for the losses of his time and effort. So meaning that In case of profit, it will be distributed according to the profit sharing ratio. But in case of losses, of course, the losses will be 100% borne by the capital provider. But the Mudarib, he will lose his effort, basically. He will lose his time that has been spent in this kind of business. And don't think that basically, because sometimes people may not understand a little bit the scenario when you say if there is any losses, it will be borne entirely by the capital provided, and the Mudarib will not bear any kind of losses. Of course, if there is no negligence, misconduct, or breach of any term and conditions. And they will think that he's losing his effort and time only, but keep in mind that in fact Mudarib is suffering more losses compared to the capital provider, even though he's not guaranteeing that capital. And the reason being is that the Mudarib has no what's so-called fee or allowance. He's not allowed to take salary, but his profit is from the return of the capital. If, let's say, there is a zero return, meaning he has a zero portions, meaning he is getting nothing. Imagine a Mudarib spending time for an investment for 1 year, and that year, of course, need expenses, need money, need salary, need funds to survive. If, let's say, for the sake of argumentations, we put with Malaysian ringgit 10,000, for example, equivalent salary to the Mudarib, or the expenses, the monthly expenses of this Mudarib, 10,000, and he will run it for, let's say, 1 year. So we are talking about an expenses of 120,000 on the Mudarib. So that 120,000, in fact, in case the Mudarabah doesn't generate any profit, it will be recorded as a loss for the Mudarib, because he will invest the money with the hope and with the objective to generate profit, and with the objective to share, for example, 10% or 20% or 30% from the profit generated. That will compensate his expenses and build his wealth accordingly. But if there is no profit, and even there is losses, meaning he will get nothing. And he has spent 1 year incurring expenses on a daily basis, but in fact, at the end of the year, when there is a liquidations, constructive liquidations of the portfolio, and there are losses, he will get nothing. Because, keep in mind, Mudarabah is a contract on profit. No profit, no money. So it is a contract on profit. It is different than Musharaka, which is a contract on profit and losses. But Mudarabah is a contract on profit, meaning that if there is a profit, Mudarib will take part of that return, that will share it with the capital provider. In case of any losses, typically if there is losses, there is no profit, meaning the Mudarib will get nothing. He has already suffered 1 year expenses, so he will be wasting and losing his time and his effort and all the expenses that he has incurred in that one, because it is on him, not on the capital provider. That's why basically from Sharia standpoint, in case of losses, it will be 100% borne by the capital provider, and there is nothing on the Mudarib, but the Mudarib will lose his effort and time, and respectively all the costs incurred throughout the course of his life. For the 12 months, if we are talking about 1 year Mudarabah, will be losses recorded on the Mudarib, which is basically is a monetary losses, because people may think, when you say if there is any losses, it will be 100% borne entirely by the capital provider, they will think that the Mudarib is suffering nothing, only lose his time and effort, which is not the case. Basically, he lost his offer and time, and all the costs and expenses that he has incurred during that year, because the source of revenue for him, if of course if he's a full-time Mudarib, the source of revenue is the return of the Mudarabah, and the Mudarabah has a recorded zero because of the losses, meaning at the end of the year he would get nothing. So it's a monetary loss as well. So that's basically some of the very important characteristics of Mudarabah that should be observed in order to have it as a valid contract. And this one basically is observed in the structure of the Takaful operator, and the Takaful operator is acting based on these descriptions, based on this concept, and based on this rule to ensure that the Mudarabah is a Sharia compliance status. With that, thank you very much, and inshallah see you in the coming sessions. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.